Yeah. So that makes sense to me, but part of the challenge is that within the United States, you have different institutions that have been created, sometimes by high church traditions, right? So you have Catholic institutions of higher learning that have become secularized or completely secular. You have low church institutions that have done the same thing, right? So you have high church institutions that are accountable to a magisterium that have nonetheless become secular and capitulated. You have Baptist institutions that were, of the no creed but Christ sort of mentality, that were founded saying, we believe in the scriptures, and that's enough, and that's it. And they've capitulated, right? So it seems like in both of those instances, they said we have an authority outside of ourselves to which we're accountable. But in both instances, there was a capitulation.
Sure. Well, because none of these authorities are going to hold a gun to your head to make you obey them. And I think there has to be a constant spirit of self-searching within those communities to make sure that the institution is living up to its founding principles. I don't think that there can be a document that can keep this from happening ever. In the Catholic Church, for example, it was not permitted by the Catholic Church for priests to molest children, yet it happened. The laws we pass and the structures we set up can only ever be as strong as the hearts of the men and women who live within them. So to keep an institution from drifting, there has to be a constant sense of conversion within the hearts of the people within it. And when you cut yourself off, whether it's formally or de facto, as in the case of so many of these Catholic institutions of higher learning that have gone completely pagan, if you cut yourself off from the source, this is going to happen. This past summer in Poland, I talked to an eminent historian who described our situation like this. He said, if you have a kite can fly high in the sky as long as it's connected to the ground by a string. But if you cut that string, the kite is going to spin out of control and crash. He said, the kite is our society, and the string is our connection to the transcendent, to God. If we cut that, then we can't help but crash. And I think that principle, and it's a very arresting metaphor, but I think the principle that it illustrates is also true for institutions. That if we cut ourselves off from the thing that gave us birth, our faith, our confession of Christ, in a particular way, not just a general confession of Christ, but a particular confession of Christ, then we're going to fall apart. And I think that one thing that is not fully appreciated by Christians, many Christians today, is how much the world gets into us. We think, because we're deep down, a lot of us are moralistic therapeutic deists, we think that anything that fails to bring us worldly success has to be bad in some way. And so we're not willing to suffer. And if the world wants us to capitulate on, say, our sexual teaching, traditional sexual teaching, we'll rationalize it. We'll say, well, this might be wrong, but I have to say this so I can go be a witness for Christ in a law firm or in a tech lab or in the corporate boardroom. That is how the salt loses its savor. Now, it could be the case that there might be a time when you have to keep your mouth shut and you haven't done the wrong thing by doing so for a greater good. But we need to be very, very aware of the corrupting element of that. I'm a professional journalist. I don't think now I could ever work in a mainstream newsroom again, though I have spent most of my life doing that because of the things I've said about gay marriage. I've never been angry or cruel, I don't think. I would never have intended to, but I believe what I believe, and I try to state it with compassion, but with firmness, because I'm under the same judgment of Christ that all of us are. But it doesn't matter. And if I've said what I've said, and a lot of newsrooms wouldn't hire me because younger people would say that would create an unsafe space. I accept that. My career options are limited now. I'm doing fine. I'm not complaining. I simply want to say, though, that I have children now. One is in college, the other two are teenagers. Their mother and I are telling them that you may not be able to do everything you want to do because you're a Christian, and it is more important to save your soul and to be faithful to Christ than it is to succeed in the world. If this means you don't get to go to Harvard, there are worse things in the world than not going to Harvard. But this sort of thing, it is anathema to middle-class Americans who will rationalize anything for the sake of holding on to that worldly success. I can say one more thing. In Europe, my book has been translated into 11 languages now, the Benedict Option, and mostly in Europe. When I go to Europe to talk about it, when I see Christians who are my age, I'm 52, my age and older, the Christians tend to be really hesitant to believe it. They want to dismiss it and make fun of it, and I couldn't figure out why that is. I'm like, meet the argument. Don't just make up what you think it is. But they wouldn't understand it. The younger Christians, say 45 and under, they completely get it and they welcome it and say, tell us more. Well, what's the difference there? I finally figured it out. Christians my age and older are invested in middle-class success. We're at a certain level in our careers. We've bought into the society in a certain way. And so we have an interest in telling ourselves that, if we just tweak things a little bit, everything's going to be fine. The younger Christians, if you're still going to church, by the way, and you're 40, 45 and under in Europe, it's because you really want to be there. They see that it costs them nothing. They will not benefit at all from being a Christian in this middle-class society, post-Christian society. They don't care. They want Christ first. And they know that the world that their parents, grandparents live in doesn't exist anymore. It's an illusion. But they want Jesus. They're the ones who are going to be the seed of the rebirth, they and their children.